CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and it is a style sheet language used to specify the style of elements in an HTML document. To add CSS to an application using an external file, create a CSS file, right-click, New File, Index, and use the .css file extension. Then go back to your index.html file. In the head tag, under title, add a link element, and for the href, just add the name of your CSS file. Now this should be working. Elements in HTML need to be given selectors in order for the CSS file to identify which element needs what style. The ID selector is used to select an item with a unique ID. Now come to this header section. To add an ID, make sure that you're in the tag and add an ID property. For this section, we'll call it header. Now go to your index.css file. Now there's two things to take note of here. To style everything on a web page, use this asterisk and then open your curly brackets and add this background color. Now go back to your web page and you should see that this background color has been applied to everything on the web page. Obviously this is not what we want to do, so just remove that. Now to style the head, use the sharp or hash symbol, type in the name of your ID, and add the property that you would like to set. Now go back to your web page and you should see that the color red applies only to the header, but the rest of the page still remains white. We're on the right track here. Go back to VS Code. Now let's add the IDs to the rest of the elements on the page, starting with div. So this div right under the header, we'll call this the header container. The login button, ID equals login button. H1 ID equals header text. If the element is located inside a div or a section, use the section or the div as the prefix before the ID. In this way, the IDs will remain unique. For your blogs button, the ID is going to be equal to header button. Moving on. Now for the video elements, the ID is equal to header dash video. Now that we've identified all elements within the header, let's go back to the CSS file. Remove this background color. Now let's style our header. Start off by setting the display property. The display specifies if an element is treated as block or inline, and the layout used for its children. Children simply refers to any element located in another element. Set the display to flex. Flexbox is a layout framework that arranges items in rows and columns. This display flex will arrange our items in a row. So let's go back to the website. Display flex aligns our items in a row, but we want to align them in a column. To do that, we set the flex direction to column. Now style the header container ID and set that display to flex. And if we go back to our website, you'll see now that our elements are aligned next to each other. This is not perfect, but we're on the right track. Now let's style our video to make it smaller and fit onto the web page. So go back to the index.html file and look for the ID of your video element, which will be header-video. Now let's set the width of this to 500 pixels. Now go back to the web page and you'll see that our video looks much better. Now to align the video to the center of the page, set a margin left of auto and the margin right of auto. Now let's go back to our web page. As you can see, our video is now aligned to the center of the web page. Now let's set a margin top of 220 pixels. The word margin just means a space, so margin top is a space from the top, which will be 220 pixels. Margin right and margin left auto means that there will be equal spacing from the left and equal spacing from the right, which will result in our video being in the center of the page. Back to the web page. If your video stopped playing, just go back to VS Code, go to your index.html file, make sure you in your video tag, and right here by the closing of the first tag, make sure there's a space between the source and the closing tag, so make a space there, and that should fix the problem. Now if we go back to our website, you'll see the videos playing again. Let's refer back to our design. So you can see by the design that we want our buttons on the right and our name in the center, or rather we can do it like this. We'll have our buttons on either side and the name in the center. So to do that, come back to your ID header container and add this property. If you are trying to improve your coding skills and learn how to build apps on your own, check out day1programmer.com for learning web development and mobile development. Get all the YouTube episodes in advance, plus some exclusive projects. You'll also get all the learning resources for building the mobile versions of all the apps. The first 5,000 people to use the link below this video to subscribe to day1programmer.com will get 50% off their subscription for life. Justify content describes how content should be laid out across the cross axis. We use space between to specify that there should be a space in between our items. And as you can see, we have equal spacing from the left to the center to the right item. Now let's style the buttons. First, set the width to be 100 pixels. Set the height to be 30 pixels. And the margin top will be 30 pixels. Now set the background color to be blue. Copy these properties from the first button and paste them to the second button. That blue is a little bit too dark, so what we can do is, to fix that, let's set our background color to gold. Okay, this looks slightly better. So we've completed the top of our layout. Now we need to do this section right here. Go back to your index.html file, and in the main section we need to add the ID selectors. We'll start by setting the section ID to main. Set the ID of the div to personal, and then come to this div where the image of the person is, and for this div set the ID to image. and then come right above the H1 that says Web Designer. Set this ID to skills. Set the ID of the div to skills. Come to where we've listed these skills right here, the HTML, CSS and React p tags. And for this div, set the ID to skills 1. And for the div directly above this and below the skills h2 tag, set this div's ID to skills container. Then come to this div above the Tailwind CSS and Firebase p tags. Set this div's ID to skills 2. Now let's go back to our CSS file and style these. Start by selecting the main ID. Set a margin of 100 pixels. This will evenly space 100 pixels all around the element. Now we set a display of flex to align the items in a row. So as you can see, the items are now going from left to right. Next, justify content, space between. This leaves space equally in between all items. You won't see it now because these images are taking up too much space, but once you decrease the size of these images, you'll see the even spacing between all three elements. Lastly, align these items center. Before we continue, let's talk about the class selector. Class can be assigned to multiple elements that are of the same class. This allows the CSS file to apply a style to multiple instances of the same element. For example, if you've got a button element that occurs multiple times on your website, instead of styling each button individually, you can apply the class of button to each of the buttons and write the CSS file once and have that style be applied to all instances of that button. Now go back to your index.html file. And let's apply a class to these images. Hit Ctrl Alt and the bottom arrow to select two lines at the same time. Then click the spacebar and just type out class equals. Now click Escape. The first image class will be LinkedIn-image. And the class for the second image will be GitHub-image. Now we can style these images from our CSS file. To select a class, type a full stop and in the name of the class. Let's add a width of 100 pixels. Now for the cursor property, set the value to pointer. Now let's go back to the web page, and you'll see that we've made this icon a lot smaller. And watch the cursor. You can see the normal cursor, and once the cursor goes onto the icon, it switches to point. Now just copy and paste this. Press Ctrl C on your keyboard. And Ctrl V. Now we've applied the style to both images. But as you can see, this line takes up a lot of space across the screen. Ideally, what we want to do is have a break right between the words UIs and the word that. So let's apply that now. Go back to your index.html file. Make sure you're in your main section and look for the h2 tag. I enjoy integrating different UIs that resonate with users. After the word UIs, click your spacebar and type two letters BR. Click enter. If you are trying to improve your coding skills and learn how to build apps on your own, check out dayoneprogrammer.com for learning web development and mobile development. Get all the YouTube episodes in advance, plus some exclusive projects. You will also get all the learning resources for building the mobile versions of all the apps. The first 5,000 people to use the link below this video to subscribe to dayoneprogrammer.com will get 50% off their subscription for life. This BR tag creates a break in this line and will move the next 4 words onto a new line. Let's go back to the web page. Now you'll see that we have a break after the word UIs. And this looks a lot cleaner. Let's start the rest of that section. We'll start off with the skills container. Set this to a display of flex. Set the flex direction to be column. Now go back to the website, and you'll see that we have these two containers are layered on top of one another. You remember the first container contains these 3 words, and the second container contains these 2 words. Now let's finish styling them and come back. Set a gap of 10 pixels. And now moving on to skills 1. Set a display of flex. And set a gap of 60 pixels. And do the exact same thing for skills 2. Now go back to the web page. And you'll see that the flex has aligned these items in a row from left to right. And we've added a gap property. Now if we remove this gap property and go back to the website, you'll see that these 3 elements have now been squashed together. So let's go back to VS Code and add those properties back. And you'll see that there's a 60 pixel gap in between these elements. Now under this GitHub class, let's add another section called personal h1. Now this will go into the personal section and find every h1 element and apply the following styles. But before we apply the styles, let's take a deeper look at that. So right now we have our personal ID, and in this div containing our personal ID, you'll see that there is an h1 tag, which means our class will be applied to this. We'll start off by adding a font family of impact. And a font size of 2.5 rem. Now let's add a font to our personal ID and the h2 element. Add a font family of Helvetica. Now if we go back to the web page, you'll see that we've applied the font of impact to the h1 tag and the font of Helvetica to our h2 tag. Now let's style our skills tags. Start by selecting skills and the h1 tags within skills. Set a font family of impact. Then set a font size of 2.5 rem. Now select skills h2. And set a font family of Helvetica. Lastly, select skills and P for paragraph tag. Set this to a font family of Verdana. Now let's go back to our website. And you can now see that we've changed the fonts and we've created even spacing. Our website is almost complete. We just need to do the footer. Go back to VS Code. Now go to your index.html file and scroll all the way down to footer. Once you reach the footer section, we can start adding our CSS selectors. So for the section, we'll add an ID of footer. For this h1 tag, add an ID of footer text. For the div tag directly under that, add an ID of projects. And for this div tag directly under this projects one, add an ID of project container.
If you are trying to improve your coding skills and learn how to build apps on your own, check out dayoneprogrammer.com for learning web development and mobile development. Get all the YouTube episodes in advance, plus some exclusive projects. You will also get all the learning resources for building the mobile versions of all the apps. The first 5,000 people to use the link below this video to subscribe to dayoneprogrammer.com will get 50% off their subscription for life.
And then copy this ID, select it, press Ctrl C on your keyboard, and come to this div directly over project management. Once you're on the div, press Ctrl V on your keyboard to paste. Move down again to personal portfolio, go to the div above it, press Ctrl V on your keyboard. And actually we need to set these IDs to classes, so just remove the ID and put class for the first one, class for the second one, and class for the third project container. So you should have class project container 3 times. So this is the first one, that's the second one, and that's the third one. Let's continue. For our div that contains our images, add a class of image container, then copy this class, go to the next section with the images, look for this div above it, and copy the class once again. And for the third time, look for the third section with the 2 images, look for the div above them, and paste the class. Now for our 2 images, let's add some selectors. Set the class of the first image to GitHub-image and make sure that you're looking at the correct file, the github.png. Set that class to GitHub-image. Now look for the next github.png file, and once again set the class to github-image and look for the last file, that's github.png. Set that file to github-image. And now for the arrow.png files. Set the class of these files to arrow-image and move up to the next arrow.png file. Once again, set the class to arrow-image and now to the top arrow.png file. Set the class once again to arrow-image. Now to add styles, go to your index.css file and let's scroll down to the bottom. Now let's add the footer ID. Set the display to flex. Set the flex direction to column. Let's go to the website. Now you see that our projects and our project container, which contains the rest of the web page, are directly under each other, but we still haven't styled these images. Go back to VS Code. Now add a class of image container, and in this class set the display to flex. And justify content center. Now select our arrow-image class add a padding from the top of 30 pixels. Add a width of 40 pixels. Finally, add a height of 40 pixels. And let's go back to our website. Now you should see this looks slightly better, but it doesn't look like the style applied to our last one. So let's go back to VS Code and troubleshoot. Go back to index.html and we're looking into this last section. Okay, now this looks a lot better. Let's finish up. Go back to index.css file. Now let's style. Select your footer-text ID. Set your font family to impact. Set a margin left of auto. Set a margin right of auto. And set your font size to REM. And as you can see, our text projects is looking nice and styled. Now we just need to style these three divs. To do that, select your project container class. Add a margin of 100 pixels. Add the property of display flex. Add a flex direction of column. Justify content, space between. Width 500 pixels. Padding 5 pixels. Border, want a solid border. The color of the border will be black. And the thickness of the border will be 5 pixels. This border radius property will add a curve to our border. Now let's go back to our web page and see the progress. This looks a lot better. We're not 100% finished though. Now let's go to the arrow dash image class. Set the cursor property to pointer. Now go below your project container class. Now let's select the H1 elements that are located within your project container. Set the font family to Helvetica. Now select your P tags that are located within your project container. And set the font family to Verdana. Lastly, let's go above your project container class. Select your project's ID. Set a display of flex. And justify content to space between. And as you can see, we've now finished the design portion of the web page. In the next video, we'll talk about adding functionality to our web page with JavaScript.
If you are trying to improve your coding skills and learn how to build apps on your own, check out day1programmer.com for learning web development and mobile development. Get all the YouTube episodes in advance, plus some exclusive projects. You will also get all the learning resources for building the mobile versions of all the apps. The first 5,000 people to use the link below this video to subscribe to day1programmer.com will get 50% off their subscription for life.